Hey guys, I wanted to do a video lesson on two trades I took, one overnight and one morning trade, pretty much right out of the gate. I'll start with BTCS. This was a trade I took yesterday into the close when the trade chart set up over 0.017. My entry by the time I got filled average was 0.0171 as an average, 50,000 shares. So it's not a large size by any means, but these can move so quickly that I took a little bit less risk on this. And I also was risking off of 0.014 when I entered. Now, when this trade worked out and started going up, I moved my risk to 0.016, thinking that if this pulled back, I wasn't expecting it to pull back as hard as it did in the morning. But I guess I'll jump to that. My lesson here is cut losses quickly, and the sooner you cut your losses when a trade starts going against you, the sooner you can use that cash for something else. There's just no point in holding, hoping, waiting, stressing over a trade. Just take the loss, move on. I already had my risk built in originally off of 0.014. And so when this thing pulled back, I mean, it opened up, I gapped up, and then it just dropped straight back down. And what I did was, as soon as it bounced back to just into this area, I ended up cutting my loss, and I think it ended up costing me $102 or something. So it was minimal damage as far as my account goes. But regardless, the lesson was just to cut the loss and get out of it. I didn't know what the chart was going to do the rest of the day. And I don't really care. I cut my losses and I move on. The second lesson to that is, once you've cut your loss, you then have the capital to move on to another trade. And that will take me to the next trade that I took, KNDI. KNDI is a Bitcoin, sorry, not Bitcoin, a electric car related stock. And it, oh, why am I on this one? Got the wrong chart opened up. KNDI. Oh, that looks better. It was zoomed out a little bit too far, and I was picking up the after hours. So here is the chart on KNDI. Again, news was that the company got approval to import their electric cars. So I don't really care what the news is. Bottom line is, what I'm looking for is price action. And the price action in pre-market was strong. It was showing that there was, clear strength in the chart on the way up. Now, I never buy into a parabolic move. I always wait to find out where it's going to set up and form a level to risk off of and work from. So this kind of brings me to the next lesson I have here, and that is, look at multiple time zones, or time frames, I should say. And if you just use a 1 minute, you can see that the price action just kept going up and up and up and up, and there just doesn't look like any pullbacks in here. When reality is that if you look at a 5-minute chart, you can see that it topped out and it pulled back right in this zone here. Now, if I take my trend line and I'll just put a trend across here, I'm just going to change the color on here, which is what I do when I'm trading. All right, so now I've got my trend line in here, and this is, looking at it obviously in hindsight is 2020, but when we were in pre-market action, I had that line drawn, and then I went back out to my 1 minute chart, and again, if I take this back here, so this doesn't look like anything, and but it was on the 5 minute chart. It was a clear pullback off of that line, and it just is, it's clear when you look at it on different time frames. So again, the lesson is to just change time frames and look at everything. 1 minute, 3 minute, 5 minute, 15 minute, an hour. You get an idea of the different pictures of where charts are setting up. And I was chatting with one of my buddies in our little chat group, and I was tempted to take a position right here and risk off of this level. But my number one rule lately has been just not to trade pre-market or after hours for that matter. I just find that the risk is too great, and it's better off just waiting for the open. And so I waited this one out, and it flushed right down to the level that I drew just before the market opened, and still just waited, and it pulled back. And once I started seeing on my level 2 in time and sales that this was bouncing off of this price, just bouncing off of 716, 715, in this zone 720, it was clearly setting up. And so what I did was I ended up, taking a smaller position than I normally do, but again, it's all about risk management, and I didn't want to get caught in a flush below this point if it wasn't going to hold there. So I took 500 shares at 727 pretty much, so right about here, and it took off after only a minute or so. It just started going back up to highs, tested high, pulled back, and I could see that there was some resistance in this area. Now, I don't have a line on this chart, but if you look back on the longer term at 823, 824, 825, somewhere in that range, there was daily resistance up there. So I had a line drawn across my map in here. So my target was in that price range. And once I got to 820, I sold half of my shares here and waited to see what it was going to do. And it was just starting to grind up and down, bounce up and down off this price. And I ended up just taking off the rest of the shares at 823. So just above here. So I caught most of that move before it pulled back. Now the rest of the day, it did grind up all day long until it pulled back here. But I felt good about what I took on this move. I mean, $1 a share, if you can get $1 a share on any of these charts, take it. And that's exactly what I did. So that again is my lesson. Once I cut BTCS and I had the cash in hand, I instantly flipped over to this chart because it's set up the way that I was looking for it. And I had the question asked in another chat group that I'm part of, how did I know where to put my where and when to buy? And I explained that just a few minutes ago. It was all to do with my line here that I drew off of the 5-minute pullback, and I waited patiently to see where it was going to set up, and that's exactly where it set up. So again, watch all your time frames and look for the level 2 action to turn. When you start seeing it bounce off of some specific price action on level 2 in time and sales, it's a good indication that something's changing. And if you get in, you have to be quick to cut losses. If this was to have broke 716 was the low at the time, I would have been out. I had a stop already sitting there ready to go. I believe I actually had my limit order set at 710, and if it was to start going through and work its way through that 716 level on the level 2, I would have been out. I wouldn't even hesitated. I would have just taken my $60 loss and run. In this case, it was a $50 risk, and I got almost $500 out of it on the reward. So it was a great trade, and I was very happy with it. So I'm hoping that this trade review helps maybe somebody else in their path and journey is to becoming a profitable trader. But the key is to be patient. Wait for the setups to come to you. Once you know what the setups are, this is a specific one that I like. trading, and it works out a lot of times. But you have to be careful. One thing that I do caution on is if this was to have pulled down, you know, way below this level, it's got a long ways to get back up to the high of day. So I don't want to see them pull back too far. And this was probably the furthest I wanted to see this pull back, because it did break the pre-market support that was kind of building up there. So anyways, this is the trade review for KNDI and BTCS on February 20th, 2019. Thanks, guys. Bye for now.